Yes, yes. You're now rocking with the best. I'm your homie HerbMan. Go tell somebody to go tell somebody. Your boy's on. And we about ready to go in, man. So I hope you guys got all your days together, got all your night stuff together. You know, put the kids to rest, trying to do everything you can. This is a weighty, weighty subject. I don't want to necessarily hold you guys long, but I definitely want to make sure that I go strong, okay? And so you guys can see the title. We're talking about medical racism, all right? This is not a new subject. It ain't stuff that I made up. These are going to be all facts, so you guys can go do your own fact checking and try to figure out exactly what we're talking about here. But I think that this is a subject matter that should be discussed around all of our tables, all of our dinner tables, and all of our households, and all of our churches, temples, and synagogues, because this is just not something that is just affecting blacks, but is also affecting all people of color, whether you're Indian, Asian, or whether you're Hispanic. You're gonna want to know about this information. But if you are black, definitely you want to know about what is going on in the healthcare center, in the healthcare system, especially when it comes down to your health, the well-being of your family, and the well-being of your children. Okay, so this is very, very important. If you guys missed this, then of course it's on YouTube. Go back and rewind it and get all the information you possibly can. If you're not subscribed to the station, we ask that you just hit the logo on the screen there and just hit that notification bell, and you will never ever miss another daily upload or daily episode of Herb of the Day. Okay, so go get somebody, man. Tell them to come on and tune in. This is the best place to be tonight. This is the best station to be tuned in, because this is your #1 station for herbal education, man. So without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and get right into it. All right. So let me see if I can share my screen. Like I said, I don't want to hold you guys long, but I definitely want to make this very, very strong so that you guys can understand the severity of what we're dealing with in our race, in our, in our culture, in our society. And then we have to think about these things and then try to carve out a way to circumvent them, a way to bring a solution to these issues, because undoubtedly these are going to need a issue. Even when we're talking about voting and we're talking about who is going to be the next representative of your country, your state, your city, your town. This is the information that you're also going to want to know, that so you can drive this home to your constituents and things of that nature, and try to get them to change by any means necessary the laws of the land, so that it cannot continue this epidemic inside of the people of color community. All right, so let's see if we can share the screen here. Please let me know if you guys get it. All right, see here. Yes, yes. So again, you're rocking with the best. I'm your host, HerbMan, and this is an episode of medical racism. All right, blacks and the healthcare system. All right, now I know when you see medical racism, you're like, what in the world is that? All right, and so quite naturally, that would be the first initial question. What is medical racism? I mean, until recently, I did not know the word for it. Okay, I never heard of medical racism, but quite honestly, I've always believed that there was a difference there in the medical system, because I remember, I'm a native of Georgia here, and I remember we have one of the biggest hospitals in the Southeast region, and I remember when there was a time where you could get shot and Grady would save you, man. They would bring you back to life, and they were kind of known for that. I mean, they literally was known to be a trauma center that could really, really bring value to the community, because they would save lives. I mean, just unequivocally. But over the years, as I continue to get older and I continue to watch the news, I started realizing that not only were people not making it out of Grady any longer, but seriously, people were dying before they even got to Grady. And so I asked the question, what changed? Okay, we know that Grady is still a facility. Grady is still a great facility. They're still doing great things, but what changed? Why is it that the gunshot victims of today are not surviving the same gunshots of yesterday? Okay, is it because we're shooting differently, or is it because we're being treated differently when we get to the hospital? I don't know, but those are the reasons why I always figured that there is something different when it comes to blacks and other people when they go to the medical facilities. And so that's where I get it from. But there is a terminology, and it is called medical racism. And the definition of that is medical racism is prejudice and discrimination in medicine and the medical and healthcare center based upon perceived race. Okay, so the optimal thing here is going to be perceived race. All right, that's what someone perceives you to be. It doesn't mean that it's facts. It doesn't mean that it's a correct, estimation of an individual. It just means that that is their perception, and based on that perception, whether it be true or fictional, they will make particular decisions or biases based on those perceptions, whether or not they're true or not. And so this is why this is a very critical subject matter for us. And this is why we really do need to listen and open our ears and open our eyes to what is actually going on. Because here again, a lot of us are flooding to the hospitals, but we're not being healed, or we're not overcoming anything. We're just living with the conditions. Okay, and so we're looking at, well, what kind of life are you living with these conditions? Okay, what is your I know you got ailments, but what is the benefit of life for you? I mean, what does that look like for you? Are you able to go where you want to go, do the things you want to do, or are you just basically holding on to that treatment and you're not necessarily being healed? Okay, so what I want to get to are the 4 levels of racism in the medical industry. And also, before I get there, I want you guys to understand that doctors and nurses come from the same social beginnings as everybody else. Okay, so with that being said, how they are raised, who they are around, their background, what they learn along the way, they will take with them into their workplace. They are no different than you and I. Okay, so when we're looking at doctors and nurses and surgeons and things of that nature, we always got to keep them in a human state. Okay, we don't want to try to think that they are robots and they just don't do these certain things. We all do them. Okay, not just the doctors, we all do them. Not just white people, we all do these things. And so I just wanted to highlight that if we all do them, then you need to understand the ramifications of these things being done inside of the medical or the healthcare system. All right. Now, the first level is conceptual racism. Okay. Conceptual racism, from my own analogy, is racism that is learned through social means or studies. Okay. What this means is that you ran across the word race and it said that race was about color, and you believed it and you just took off running with that. And with that being said, you looked at race as it being a factual thing, and that people are different and people require different methods of treatment based on race, not without experience, not without really knowing. You just took that word, took the understanding, and you believed it as that. So what I'm saying is that all you believe is the concept. You never really had any facts to follow up. You are what we consider to be conceptual racist. Okay, you only learn these things through some study means, and you never really had any concrete direct contact with it. And so that's kind of the place you're stuck in. Okay, now secondly is collective racism. Now, in my definition, this is where you learn racism through family members, okay, or through your town, or through your culture. Maybe you grew up in a one of these cultures to wear skinhead culture or something like that. Or maybe you grew up in the Black Panther culture. You see what I'm saying? And so you never was around any black people. You never went to school with any black people. You never went to college with any black people. You never did anything with any black people. So for this, you learn racism from a collective understanding of everywhere you go and everybody you know is of the same race as you, and you never really had any experience with any other cultures outside of your family members. Okay, so this is when you become a racist from a collective environmental standpoint. So for me, collective is environmental. Your environment taught you how to be racist. Okay, it wasn't from a book. All right, now third is experienced racism, and this comes surely from being in direct contact with racism. Whether you're white or black, you have experienced racism. Whether you were black, you experienced it from white people or other races, or whether you're white, you may have been bullied from, when you were younger, black kids bullied you. Okay, and as you grew up, you carried on that. You carried on that egregious, mentality toward blacks. Like, hey, I can't stand them. They bullied me when I was young. I don't want nothing to do with them. And now you're a doctor and a black person now is coming to your hospital, okay? But you experience racism through direct contact. And so what you take into the workplace is that experience, okay? Now, the fourth one is institutional racism. Now, this is a little different from collective because it's not about environment. To me, institutional racism is when you learn this through social and political institutions. This almost to me is when a person has decided to take a stance in these particular sides. Okay, let's say we're talking about Democratic and Republican. Okay, let's say we're talking about skinheads against Black Panthers or something like that, or something like that. So basically, you have to make a decision on which institution you're gonna be with. And so this is not learned. This is not environmental. Everybody around you was doing it. And this is not experience. This is more of making a decision on which platform you're going to stand on. And so this may be one of those situations where racism exists, but you have to pick a side. And so you will socially go toward people that you belong to. Okay, you belong to white people, you're going to go to a white school, you're going to go to corporations that benefit white people, you're going to live in a city, town, or state that benefits white privilege. Okay, if you're in the political arena, you're going to go with platforms that benefit your community, that benefit your platform that you want to put out there, right? So these things are where we make a conscious decision to go toward an institution that breeds division or that breeds racism. You get that? So these are the four levels. One is learn, one is environment, the other one is direct contact with it, and then the other one is when you make a conscious decision to be divided or to be diversified in this particular manner. Okay, so these are how racism can get into the workplace, especially the healthcare system. And so that's why I wanted to tell you guys that doctors are first citizens. Okay, they learn these things from different ways and they bring those things into the workspace. And I'm not saying that they are cold, outright racist, but again, you do things with an unconscious biasness toward people that you assimilate with naturally, people that you are used to naturally, people that you have known, you're going to gravitate to them naturally. People who you have dealt with before, who are familiar to you, you're going to gravitate to naturally. And these quite often create what we consider favoritism, right? Because it's quite natural to favorite those things that you know well, that you know better, okay? Most of us are not going to favor something that we don't know, all right? If we haven't spent time getting to know this thing, then we're not going to say that this is our favorite. We're not going to share, everything with this particular thing that you don't know, right? So it's incumbent upon us to know other races, it's incumbent upon us to know our differences. It's incumbent upon us to be open-minded with different cultures and different societies and different traditions and different body types, right? But we can't do it to where we are being so egregious toward another race. And so that whole system, when you're keeping a whole race down systematically, that is considered racism. Okay, when it's a system that keeps a whole people down, that is considered racism. All right. Now, when we're talking about the human race, one thing I do want to chronicleize for you guys is that when we say human race, do you automatically think color or do you think competition? For most of us, we think color. The human race are humans with different colors of different places and different regions of the world. But have you ever thought about it being a literal race? That humans are competing for the world's natural resources. And the humans, right? The humans that collect all the resources, or at least most of the resources, have a better chance of survival. Okay. And so why don't we look at this as being a human competition? And that all the humans of different hues, whether they be white, black, tan, red, green, everybody is trying to survive and prolong their particular race. Okay. And so what happens here is when you look at it from a competitive standpoint, then you have to ask yourself the question, why rely on the competition? Why rely on the competition? You give the competition more power. And in that power, they can decide your fate. Why would you give somebody that much power in a competitive arena? Okay, this is why I did the video. So what we need to understand is that we are competing for the ultimate survival of the fittest, of the humans. And when you're competing, you have to have competing systems. You don't need to be relying on one system, but you need to create competitive systems that will benefit your race like somebody else is benefiting their race. See, I can't blame white people for the benefits or the privilege they have, because I want the same thing as a black person. But what I don't realize is why we don't have competitive systems. So that, see, one thing that I realized about the whole thing is that the white race created systems that were seemingly accessible to all people. And so when you do that, it looks like you came up with a great plan that incorporated all of us. And when you go down to, let's say, other races, they're more limited to the accessibility. All right. The Chinese make things for Chinese. Okay. It's a Chinese country, right? And so everybody benefits in China that are Chinese. Okay. Japanese, the Japanese benefit. Japan, the Japanese benefit. Okay. When you go to the Middle East and all of these different regions over there, they all benefit the people from those countries. Okay. But when America came about, they came up with systems that seemingly was beneficial to all who can come. All right. And so you have people that are leaving their countries, that are going across that water, that are flying, that are jumping over Donald Trump's walls, trying to get to America because they say, hey, they have a system that is all inclusive. And so my thing to other races, especially to the black community, this is a call of action to you guys. We need to create competitive systems that incorporate all of us, and that will benefit the black race. Okay. Now, when did this all begin? When did medical racism all begin? So you can understand that not only is it a historical thing, but it's also a current thing. See, so racism in medicine has been a problem for over 2,500 years. It is a historical continuum that continuously affects African American health and the way they receive healthcare. Racism is, at least in part, responsible for the fact African Americans, since arriving as slaves, has had the worst healthcare, the worst health status, and the worst health outcome of any racial or ethnic group in the United States of America. And there have been many famous doctors and philosophers and scientists of each historical era who were involved in creating and perpetuating this racial inferiority in mythology and stereotypes. And so way back in the beginning, when they said that you weren't human, and that you were 2/5 of a human, and that you were in between a Caucasian and a orangutan, right? What they did was, when they took your humanity from you, then they began to look at you as non-human. And so they began to come up with these things that you could, you had zero pain, that you didn't even feel pain. Okay. But what they were doing was they was taking your humanity away. All right. For when they say that you didn't feel pain, or when they say that you were 2/5 or 3/4 of a human, or that you come from a monkey, what they were trying to do was say that they could experiment on you. Okay. That you were not human, that you were an animal, that you were beneath humanity, and that you didn't feel. And because you didn't feel, we didn't need to necessarily feel for you. And so that we began to carve out, when we begin to carve out that difference in you, we also too carved out different medicines for you. Okay. And so now we came up with the Negro medicines, right? Now, what are the Negro medicines? Right. And so these things became a way to honestly to probe and to dissect, okay, you, and to figure out how you operate, and all of these different elements of you, and to see how different you were than them, I guess. But in essence, this is the beginning of where we are today, and the reason why we still aren't getting afforded the right and proper treatment, because we're still being seen as non-human, Now let's read on. Look at this. Such theories were routinely taught in U.S. medical schools. Okay, so now most of the doctors in the U.S. are what color? White. Most of the teachers that teach medical school are white. Okay, so you have white teachers teaching white students. Okay, and most of the patients that came in there are white. They weren't you, they were white. So all of your medication theories are pretty much off of white patients. They have no information on really how to treat you. So when you go to the hospital today, you're being treated up under the osmosis of a white patient. Let me say that again. You, as an African American, when you go to the hospital, you're being treated as a white patient, because all of the information they got in these medical doctrines and medical books come from white patients. They come from white patients. Okay. Now look at this. They not only taught this in the 18th, the 19th, and the 20th century, but the conceptualization of race moved from the biological to the sociological sphere with the march of science. So now science came in and backed the doctors up. Oh yeah, they ain't really human, and they ain't really from this, and they ain't really from that. And so that didn't do nothing but continue to perpetuate it all the way up until the 21st century. Okay. The atmosphere created by racial inferiority theories and stereotypes, 246 years of Black chattel slavery, along with biased educational processes, almost inevitably led to medical and scientific abuse, unethical experimentation, and overutilization of African Americans as subjects for teaching and training purposes. Hey, look, there's a long list of guys who, probed our women back in the day. We all know about the Tuskegee Airmen thing. We all know about that experimentation. We all know about, the syphilis movement. We all know about, Fannie Lou Haman. What can I say? James, what his name is, Mr. Sims. Have you never heard of James Sims? Look him up. He was one of those guys that just used to go inside of ladies, man, and just wreak havoc. Just wreak havoc, going in there and just ripping women apart, man. So much and so egregious that even some of his own counterparts could not stand to watch him do the African American subjects like that. And so what he would do is go get the other slaves and tell them to come in and hold the black lady down while he do his thing. You see what I'm saying? So this has been going on for ages and ages and ages, but it has not stopped. It has not stopped. Okay. Now, when we look at this, what are we saying? What is the most dangerous form of medical racism, right? What should we be looking out for? How can we know that this is going on? What are we to look for? What are the signs? Okay. Well, here's the most difficult thing. The most dangerous form of medical racism in the modern era is the unconscious bias providers. Now, see, you got to understand what that unconscious bias means. Unconscious bias are social stereotypes about certain groups of people that individuals form outside their own conscious awareness. It means that they don't know that they are being racist. They don't know that they're being biased, but they are. They are. See, doctors don't know that they're being biased when they don't want to come into your room because you're so fussy. So they just go ahead and go to the white patient's room. Or they don't know they're being biased when they don't really want, to deal with you because, maybe your family or somebody is talkative or whatever. And so what they'll do, they may hold an hour-long conversation with a white patient. They may only hold a minute-long conversation with you. And so this is where the bias comes in at, okay? What if a doctor says, well, you want this, you got AIDS, but he feels like you won't take this particular medication, right? She ain't gonna take it because she already told me she's not with the chemotherapy stuff, so she's not gonna take this medication. So he doesn't prescribe you the very medication that you need. Instead, he gives you an alternative therapy, an alternative treatment. But the white person that comes in, it's the first thing he offers them. The very first thing he offers them is the drug that can heal them. But with you, he automatically say, well, I don't know. Okay. They ain't going to take it. So let's just try this with them. And they give you the less effective drug, although you may need the most powerful one. So this is where unconscious bias needs to be checked. And it needs to be checked by each and every person that hears this. They need to be aware of what they are unaware of. Okay. So everyone holds unconscious beliefs about various social and identity groups. And these biases stem from one's tendency to organize social worlds by categorizing, okay? Because your world is going so fast, you ain't got time to get to know somebody so that you can trust them, so that you can treat them in the best way, which is why I don't call the medical care of today health care, because they don't care about you. Because care meaning that you're gonna have to take a little time to get to know me, get to know me from a cultural standpoint, me from a genealogy standpoint, so that you can see my genetics, you can see my lineage, you can see traditionally what I've eaten, what I've come from, what region of the world I lived in, so that you can put all that together to give me the prescription that is for me. But you won't do that because, again, you're trying to find a way to get me out of your face and on to the next one. And when you're doing this by numbers, unconscious bias is the way you go by it, okay? Unconscious bias is far more prevalent than conscious prejudice and often incompatible with one's conscious values. So that means that when somebody finally tells you that this is what you're doing, you're gonna be like, well, but I'm not racist. But I don't really believe that way, right? But unconsciously, you tend to go toward that which you are familiar with. You tend to help out more those people who look like you. And that's just not from doctors. That's everybody do that. All I'm saying to you is that realize that you do it, then understand that the doctors are doing it. This is the whole thing that I'm just trying to get you to see. so that you'll understand that it is going on. And the worst place for it to go on is in the medical facility. Now, there are certain scenarios that can activate unconscious attitudes and beliefs. For example, biases may be more prevalent when multitasking or when you're working under time pressure. Again, when you're too busy and when you got to go, you got a whole floor of patients to see. 9 times out of 10, a white doctor will try to spend more time or will unconsciously spend more time with those white patients on that floor than the black counterparts. Okay, that's just the bottom line. If you were a black doctor, you probably would spend more time talking and shooting the jive with the black patients more than you would the white patients. Why? Because there is a familiarity there. Okay, there is a ease of conversation that is there. Okay, and when all of that gets started, then obviously you're going to want to help that individual out way more than anybody else, because you feel like you know them, you feel like you've drawn closer to them, and you want to give them the best quality of healthcare you possibly can. All I'm saying is, doctors and nurses, we have to open up our minds and give everybody this particular attention to detail. Everybody deserves this. Everybody deserves this. Okay. Now, what are some of the disparities we find when dealing with medical racism? Now, this is the fun part. Okay. Because this is where we highlight all of these particular things. And there's more to this. Like I said, I'm trying not to make it long, but I want to make it strong. Okay. So these are just a few of the disparities that have happened in the black community or in the community of color because of this unconscious biasness, this medical racism in the black community. Okay. We have higher infant mortality rates. Okay, what this means is that our babies die off more than white babies or any other race of babies. And I want you guys to go look up all of these. These are at least double, if not triple, the numbers of whites. Okay, our numbers have gotten better. Blacks are living longer, but we're still, there's still a gap in between the whites and the black lifespan. Okay, blacks are getting more health care, but there's still a big gap in between the white healthcare and your healthcare. You see what I'm trying to say? So we gotta narrow the gap. We gotta narrow the gap. We are doing better, but we got to narrow the gap. Our babies are dying at a higher rate. Okay, mothers who died during birth. There is black women die at double the rate of white women when they're trying to conceive a baby, and if they die at birth, the black women die more often. Okay, black people have a lower life expectancy rate due to the fact that we live in impoverished communities, our high stress levels that we're under, our diets, and all of these particular things attribute to why we have lower life expectancies rate, as well as when we do go to the doctors, we're not getting the proper treatment. Okay, so when you add all of that up, you got a shorter lifespan for black people. Okay, we have a higher death rate, so you got a lower life expectancy, meaning that you're not going to live as long as most other people, and you're dying off way faster. Now, just to give you a little understanding of higher death rates, all right, per 1,000 people, at least about 900 black people die out of 100,000 people. Okay, where the whites are about at 600 or 700, and the Hispanics at about 700-800. Okay, so we're almost 1,000 people out of 100,000 that die, pretty much every day. And so that rate is where we at right there. But like I said, go do your research and you'll see that all of these have big disparities. I mean, big gaps. All right. So again, next is you wait longer in the ER, and you wait longer than your white counterpart when you go just for your normal hospital visit. It is recorded that we wait at least 20 minutes longer than our white counterpart. Okay, at least 20 minutes longer. And that not only for adults, that also goes for children as well. So even in the pediatrics, black children wait 20 minutes at least longer than their white child counterpart when dealing with broken bones and things of that nature, okay? So it doesn't matter what you got. If you got a broken bone as a child and the white kid got a broken bone, the white kid has a higher chance of getting seen before you, period. Disparities, okay? Now we're talking about higher rates of sickle cell anemia. Now here is where predominantly, mostly blacks get this sickle cell anemia, right? But I'm going to give you a little synopsis of this. Sickle cell anemia is one of the epidemics that has been going on for years in the black community. But when we talk about how much money is being allocated to the research here, okay, to just the research alone, you'll see that there's more money being given to cystic fibrosis than to the sickle cell anemia patients. Now, over all these years, over all these amount of deaths that have happened, over all these conditions that have happened in the black community, how in the world is more money being given to cystic fibrosis? Because cystic fibrosis is a condition that normally happens in white people, okay? In white people. So they're giving more money to a minor, I ain't gonna say minor, but to a situation that happens in white people rather than a situation that's an epidemic in blacks. Medical racism, okay? We all know the next one, definitely higher rates of diabetes. Again, that's due to our diets, our high stress levels. That's also due to medical racism. When you're going to the doctor, you guys are not getting your vitamin and mineral deficiency tests because they're not telling you about those. Okay, so you don't even know to even ask for those. So you don't know what you're deficient in mineral and vitamin deficiency. You don't know those things. So what happened is you go so long and so far eating these particular diets, whether you're a meat and potatoes guy or whether you're a vegan. Okay, certain things you're gonna miss because you have limited diets, right? But they ain't gonna tell you nothing. They're not gonna give you no preventative measures. They're not gonna give you no dietary plans. They're gonna let you live out how you live. But what then you come around, you got diabetes. See, so here is the thing. So now I contribute this one to not giving us preventive methods. All right, not really. The medical field is more for reactionary medicine. When you got something, they're good. But they don't really concentrate a whole lot of resources in the preventive medicine. And, you know, here at Lethal Violet Essentials, this is the precipice or the platform that we like to stand on. We want to seek healthy people and then let them know that you need to look for health when you're healthy, not when you're sick. It's almost too late then. So if you really want to be healthy and if you really want to stay away from these particular things, if you really don't trust the doctors, if you really want to take healthcare back into your own hands and transition to self-care, then you need to be aware of what's going on and you need to understand what you need to do so that you can take care of yourself. Okay. Now, next, you got higher rates of death with curable diseases, higher death rates with curable diseases. To me, that is just off the rip miseducation or no education at all about these particular conditions. So when I go to the doctor or when I go to the, my clinic or whatever, you give me medicine, you give me all of this, but you don't give me a lot of education on what it is that I'm dealing with. Because if somebody know that they can get their stuff cured, don't you think they would? But what we're doing is we don't look for cures, we look for treatment. So a lot of you out there dealing with high blood pressure, diabetes, and all these things, there are cures for those things, but you don't really want to change your lifestyle. You don't want to change your diet. You want to still eat what you want to eat with diabetes, so you will opt out for the treatment, and that is the medical facility, okay? When you want treatment, take a pill. When you want a cure, take the herbs. So this is what we're dealing with. Miseducation or no education leads to high death rates with curable diseases. You have lower distribution of pain meds. This is not only for the adults, this also goes for the black children. You get lower distribution of pain meds than your white counterpart. There are some white people that can just call their doctor and get some pain meds, but you can't. There are some sickle cell patients that have been inhibited from getting pain medicine because the medical practitioners act like they don't believe the sickle cell patients. Why? Because a sickle cell patient, when they're in pain, it's hard to see that. You can't really see that. You just got to believe that individual. They're not going to show a lump on their forehead or a bruise on their thigh, right? So, a person with a broken arm is quite easily to see that they're in pain. You take them before the sickle cell patient. But with the sickle cell patient, they are really in excruciating pain. So when they go to the ER, they don't even get pain meds. They got to prove some kind of way, or they either get sat out there in the waiting room for forever. And what happens is we end up leaving. Okay. So sickle cell patients literally either don't go to the hospital for those pain meds and find some alternative ways to deal with their situation, or when they do, they gotta, put on all this particular stuff just to get the pain meds, man. So we get low distribution of pain meds to people who truly need them in the Black community, whether you are an adult or a child. So I want you to understand that they're not taking no slack. Now, they do try to save the babies, but one thing they don't try to do is figure out what is going on with the babies. So now you have a lower rates of surgery for chronic illness. So when we're dealing with this particular disparity, all right, let's say you need surgery, but you don't want it, right? Because you got this phobia, you don't want nobody to go into your body. They say that when they cut you open, everything spread. And so in the Black community, because of our outlook on the medical facility, we don't get surgery when we really need it, guys. We don't get it. And this contributes to us dying off very early. So we get lower rates of surgery based on our own beliefs, based on how we feel, or just based on the fact that we don't have the money. We don't have the finances to get the surgery. We can't afford to be out of work or out of just down like that. We got a house full of kids or things of that nature. So we opt out on it. And that attributes to early death in the Black community. Medical racism at its finest, man. All right, so next here we got high rates of hysterectomy and uterine fibroids in our Black women. There's historically where they used to, do hysterectomies on our Black women without them knowing, to try to subside the population growth in the Black community. There was a time where we were, having babies 2 to 3-fold of our counterparts. Okay, they used to say that they didn't understand how we could have these many babies under the condition that we were under. There were even slave owners that used to tell you that a Black woman was more viable than a Black male slave. Why? Because she could have these babies. And they consider a female slave that can have babies every 2 years more value than the male slave. So we were forced to have babies to create slave population, especially after the abolishment of slavery. We was forced to have these babies so that we can have more workforce. But now all of a sudden, you can't force yourself to have one now because you got PCOS, because you got hysterectomy, you got uterine fibroids. The list goes on and on with what's going on in our Black females' bodies. This is all due to medical racism. We need to understand this epidemic because it's been going on for far too long. Again, we're talking about low childbirth rates because of what's going on in the Black woman. She's not been able to conceive. Right now, they'll tell you that in the Black community and in the U.S. population, period, women are not churning out births like they used to. Matter of fact, the Hispanic woman is now the leading woman to have kids. But the white woman and the Black woman are having their difficulties in birthing child. This is also due to the condition that we're in and the social strains, the stresses. All right. This is also due to our ever-changing world where people are becoming, so sexually advanced that some women are not choosing men. They're choosing to be with women, okay? And men are choosing to be with men. This can cause low childbirth rates, okay? Also, too, because of our financial situations, people are opting to wait until they get the finances. And then by the time they get the finances, most people get the most money in their 40s. Well, ironically, the most women lose their ability to have babies in their 40s. So when you wait that long, now your chances decrease that much. Low childbirth rates are environmental, but also conditional. And so this is one of the effects that come from medical racism when you don't get the proper education of your body. Okay. Higher rates of unemployment. You say, well, how is that a factor? Well, if you don't have a good job, if you don't have a job, period, you probably ain't got no insurance. And if you ain't got no insurance, you probably ain't going to the doctor. And if you ain't going to the doctor, then how you going to get what you need? So medical racism happens when you keep a people from the employment arena, when you keep us from getting jobs, when you keep the gap of unemployment at a disparity, then that will also reverberate into the gap in the medical field. Because we all know you got to have the insurance. We all know that somebody got to pay the doctors. We all know this. So when you don't have a job, you ain't going to the doctor. And when you ain't going to the doctor, you're allowing your body to deteriorate without knowing anything. And nowadays, when you do go, you still ain't going to know nothing. So again, this is another reason for medical racism, okay? It's all systematic. All right, now also too, we're looking at people who have the same, black people who have the same insurance as white people, but you get different care. You didn't know that, did you? You can have the same Kaiser Permanente, you can have the same United Healthcare and be paying the same $200 a month, but when both of y'all go to the hospital together, ironically, the white person would get seen before you. Same insurance. Who would have thought? How does that happen? Where they do that at? United States of America, man. You can have the same disease as the white person. You're going to get a different treatment. Hey, if this don't hit you guys, if this don't make you run to the books, if this doesn't inspire and ignite the fire in you to achieve excellence and bring our level of thinking and how we're going to go forward in the future. If this don't highlight that, if this, you know, people used to say, if you're not crunk by now, then ain't nothing I can do. You understand what I'm saying? If none of these things have inspired you by now, it's nothing that we can do for you. But for those that can see where I'm going with this, hopefully you guys are the world changers for the Black community and for the world as a whole, man. Lower graduation rates for African-American doctors and nurses are also attributed to medical racism, because if we understand this bias, this unconscious bias, then you're going to have to put more people that look like you in there so that they can, you know, be unconsciously biased towards you. Because if you have all of the doctors white and all of the surgeons white, but all of the patients are Black, there may be an issue there. There may be an issue there. And so I believe there's already have been an issue there. And that's why we need to change that. So we can't just change it by, you know, having awareness of this stuff, and we just can't change it by knowing it, but we got to change it by inspiring our kids to understand that this is how we're going to change it. We have to start creating more doctors and nurses in our households. We got to start creating more herbalists in our households. We got to start creating more health conscious individuals in our households. And this is how we can take the reins of our healthcare back into our own hands. We have to start birthing doctors and nurses to change these things. If you want to change the criminal justice system, you got to start birthing lawyers and judges. You got to start birthing police officers. You can't keep asking the competition to change so that you can win the race. Who's going to do that? Nobody's going to front you no points, man. You got to win this fair and square. And if they are winning it based on the strength of intelligence and power, then we got to meet them at the front door with the same intelligence and with the same power. Brute for brute strength. We can't keep allowing ourselves to be privy and relying on death to come knocking at our door in the frame of brotherhood. We have to be our own brothers and sisters. We got to love ourselves first before we will require somebody to love us in the same regards. But we can't assume. We got to know it. It's time out for assumptions. We've been losing too many people from assumptions. So what is the outcome of medical racism? Well, for the most part, it's already taking place. For a lot of us, we don't like to go to the doctor. We don't want to go to the doctor unless we absolutely have to. And this is called iatrophobia. Iatrophobia is an abnormal or irrational fear of doctors or of going to the doctor. But I like to call this the fear of the healer. Because here's the thing. Some of y'all will go to the doctor, but you won't go outside of that medical industry. You won't go to your herbalist. You won't go to your Reiki healer. Okay? You won't go to look at alternative means for your health. So again, you're not only fearful of the doctors, but you're also fearful of the alternative healers. Oh, trust me, I know. Because I get that feeling that you guys fear somebody coming in and saying, hey, you don't have to go down there to the doctor. Come over here. I've done research on these herbs, and these are the things that you can take that will do the same thing for you, right? Get rid of your condition, but also too, these will not harm you. They won't have any side effects, and they probably will help other things in you instead of mess up other things in you. Okay, so this not only is a fear of the doctors, but this is a fear of anything outside of the doctor thing too. So you have a fear of the healer. And I'm saying, come on back home. 80% of Africans go to traditional healers and herbal medicine. But the direct opposite it is in the United States. Over 80% of the African Americans go to the modern medical system. That is medical racism. When you're talking about herbalism, you're talking about understanding optimal health. I want to explain this. An herbalist goes into studying, and then comes out of that understanding that you have to approach healing from a holistic way. So we try to tell you guys about your spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical state and how all of it intertwined. But you don't want to hear that. You just want a pill so that you can go on back to eating your chicken, so that you can go on back to clogging your arteries, so you can go on back to your vegan diet. Okay, that's all you want. But you don't want to change your situation by heightening your education on the subject matter. That's all we got to do to change this. So a lot of us are suffering from this phobia, and we don't even know it. This is another unconscious thing that we're doing, where you have a lot of us who are opting out of going to the doctor. Oh, they don't know what they're doing. Every time I go, I got to wait, and then they don't really give me what I need. Okay, but what is happening is, what I'm saying is, you got to go to somebody. We need a better healthcare system. Okay, and I'm putting it on people who are listening to this, whoever. You share the video, whoever. I'm putting it on the black race to come up with that system for themselves. But if you can make it grand enough, we should make it grand enough that it incorporates everybody so that we can trump the system that we're in. Okay? All right, now, so what are the solutions? What are the solutions? Well, we just alluded to a few of them. Diet is going to be the biggest solution of all. Going back and understanding your traditional diet. Going back and understand the foods from your heritage, how they were prepared, how they were cooked, how they were given, how they were cultivated, right? Growing your own foods on your patio, all right, on your balcony, in your backyard. Okay, this is one way we can come up with a solution, and we can turn healthcare into self-care. Another way is to ensure you're getting your daily value of nutrition, that every time you eat a full plate, that you don't just eat meat, potatoes, and that you just ain't eating vegetables, vegans, but that you are eating everything you need to bring about a wholesome plate. Okay, and you're getting all your nutrition. I know some people gonna say, well, I don't need no meat. Hey man, hey, look, I'm not into what's right, what's wrong. I'm just into getting you to understand that it's all good if you get the education behind it. But if you limit yourself, then you are eating too much of the same things, and then that is not moderacy. That ain't moderacy. So if all you eating is meat and potatoes, you're not eating that in moderacy. And if all you eating is green vegetables, you're not eating that in moderacy. And food, if you're not eating it in moderacy, can be your medicine or it can be your disease. So we need to get an understanding of a true wholesome plate, okay, that will incorporate all of the traditional values that we need, or all of the traditional things that we need to benefit our Black bodies. All right, now, secondly, we need to look at the employment sector, okay? And we need to create more jobs by creating more corporations, not just small businesses. Now, of course, we need to create small businesses, and we need to continue to create small businesses, and we're really at a deficit in creating those. But we need to heighten our ideals. We need to imagine a whole lot grander, right? And create corporations that can hire the whole hood if need be. Okay, instead of wanting to be a doctor to work at a clinic, want to be a doctor and open up your own hospital. Want to be a lawyer and open up your own law school. Want to be a nurse and open up your own nursing school, so that you can teach what you need to teach and not necessarily allow us to come through their education system. See what I'm saying? So we need to open up our minds a little bit more in the business sector and create corporations that can create jobs for us. And we need more African-American, like I said, doctors and nurses and African-American centered healthcare facilities. And that's going to also be in the entrepreneurial and the employment side. Okay? And those things can, quite honestly, be solutions for us. Okay? Because once we got the money and once we got the power, we can start putting into place policy. All right. Now, the third one is the education. Okay? We definitely got to get up on education. And so that's why it's so important for you guys to, you guys can go and look at some of my videos where we talk about the traditional African diet versus the modern diet of excess. Okay. And so when you know what traditionally you ate and what traditionally benefits your makeup, your cellular makeup, then that's going to benefit you. Okay. Some of these diets that we're on are not our diets. They don't benefit the Black body. You understand what I'm saying? Black bodies need to be lean. Okay, they need to be more leaner. When you're looking at why we were created based on the environment that we were going to be living in. So you're going to be living in a hot climate. So you got dark skin, but you needed to be lean because you needed to be able to be nomadic and move around and sweat and not be able to get so full and fat that you can't move, or that you need to eat more than you can be nomadic. So you needed to be lean. You didn't need to be obese, you need to be lean. If I put a lot of us African Americans back into our original climate, we wouldn't make it. We wouldn't make it. And I ain't talking about because that, because of the situation over there. You wouldn't make it because you couldn't make it in the heat, because you couldn't make it to the water supply long enough. You would eat up all the food, right? Because you don't know how to ration out. You don't know how to have a little bit of something and be sufficient in that. So you would not make it. Right now, you're not designed for the climate that you were actually designed for. And it's because we're taking on other cultures. We're taking on their diets. We're taking on their work ethics. We're taking on their medicines. We're taking on their foods. We're taking on their dancing and their movies and their entertainment, when we got our own stuff. We got our own stuff. And so we need to educate ourselves in what is ours. We need to educate ourselves on our traditional food, on our environment, on our culture. And then we need to reinvent those aspects in our communities and in our households. Nobody's saying you got to go back to Africa or the Caribbean islands. We're saying learn it and then recreate it in your community. Learn it and then put it in your household. That's what we're saying. It's time out for us to be talking about we're black, but we're living a white man's life. And it's not benefiting our cellular makeup. We're dying trying to be somebody else. Unconsciously, not even knowing it. And then lastly, we need to seek help while you are healthy. Stop waiting until you get sick, trying to look for help or help. Get it now. If you're 20 years old and nothing wrong with you, then you need to keep it like that and get on some herbs to do that. If you're 30 and nothing is wrong with you, you need to keep it like that and get on some herbal remedies. If you're 40 and just so happen you're still healthy, you need to keep it like that and get on some herbal remedies. If you are 50 or 60 and you have not gotten into any serious illnesses, you need to keep it like that and get on herbal things so that you can circumvent those things from ever happening to you. Herbs are preventive medicine. I am trying to prevent these things from happening. We don't want you to be sick and coming to us. I want you to be healthy. Healthy and never have to see a surgeon, a doctor, ever in life. And if you do get an illness, if you do get sick, it's so minor and your health education is so up to par. You're taking care of all those little minor things in the comfort of your own home. Seek health while you're healthy. And lastly, we have to continue to do things like this and raise awareness on this medical racism. Raise awareness about Blacks and the healthcare system. Raise awareness on the disparities that have been going on for over 2,500 years. Raise awareness on the many egregious procedures that were done to our African American women and many egregious procedures that were done to the African American men to keep our population low, to keep our stress levels high. Raise awareness that there are really true healers that are here. I know a lot of you guys love Dr. Sebi, but he's not the only one. And we only know a little bit of portion of Dr. Sebi's life. But we try to copy and we try to hail them out to be this. But there are people who are taking what Dr. Sebi started and they're walking that dog on the rest of the way. And those are the people that you have to follow. because Dr. Sebi is dead, y'all. And he didn't leave a whole lot of information on how he created the things that he created. So what we have to do is take that inspiration and go further than Dr. Sebi ever did in his life. We have to take what he started and we got to finish the race for our people. Because I can tell you one thing, that Dr. Sebi also was stricken down by what he saw in Africa and what he saw in African Americans, and how he had to prove to his own people who he was. And I'm tired of having to prove to y'all that we have people that are ready to take the reins of not only the Black community back, but the world as a whole. And all we are missing is your support. It's your support, Black people. Your support. We need it. And it's high time that you start putting your support, your money into the Black people that you are birthing, into your Black doctors. It may not be their system, but our system works for us. To our Black movements, it may not be their movements, but it's going to be movements that benefit our policies and our procedures. We don't have to look like somebody else. Black excellence is not white excellence. It looks different. It sounds different. So we don't need to try to measure Black excellence up to white excellence. You don't need to have the Black store man act like the white store man. The Black store man is going to be his own person, and he's going to greet you and he's going to treat you how he desired to treat his customers. But you don't measure him up to the white facilities because he's not white. You got to get back used to your people. Get back used to how you treat yourself. We keep trying to measure ourselves up to the white man don't do all that and the Mexican don't do all that. That's because that's who you go to. And even though he ain't treating you right, you still support him. So still support me, sis. Keep coming back to me. Brother, raise awareness about this thing, man. As y'all can see, I'm fired up because I believe that this is the most important video that I could put out, the most important message that I can give you. Hopefully, you guys can get inspired to change the tides, because if you don't, then your children will be doing videos 40 years from now too, talking about the same exact thing, blaming their parents and the previous generations for not taking the reins and changing it for the future. Okay, so hey man, I thank you guys for every single thing. Okay, but I just want you guys to know that I'm here for you. I'm here for you. I know you guys may not understand it, you may not believe it, but it's a reason why we say what we say here, man, that we love you and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. There ain't nothing you can do about that. And you need to start finding more and more people that are willing to love you like that. And you need to join them and be a part of their thing, their movement. That's all I got to say, man. I love y'all, man. I appreciate you. Go tell somebody, go tell somebody. Till next time. Peace.